put a line in the sand, be like, oh, I'm not going to do these certain hours, or I'm okay with doing these certain hours. So sometimes you've got to weigh up those pros and cons a little bit, depending on your own moral compass and how you want to, do that. So I was okay with it and I could do it, so I did that. And so since then, I worked at Blockhead in Auckland for about 5 years, and then they opened up an office in Sydney because Sydney is quite a large hub for visual effects these days, as you would imagine. They've got Disney out here that shot like Thor, which I met some of the crew on recently, which sounds super sick. Thor is sounding really cool, by the way. So I worked in Sydney for about a couple of years after that, because Sydney's quite a large hub when it comes to commercials and films.
Yeah.
And I basically just worked my way up. I learned as much as I could, and I had some really great mentors along the way. So when I got to Blockhead, there were the two owners who were also compositors from back in the UK, and they were also Kiwis, but having that mentorship through my learning experience and being at work, I think was key for me, climbing up the ranks and learning and being who I am now. Not only internal mentors, but outside mentors as well. So I worked at Blockhead for about 5 or 6 years. And then I jumped over to Sydney, and then about 7 or 8 months from now, I got tapped on the shoulder to be where I am now, purely because I managed to, meet the right people. I managed to work my butt off, and I managed to do some really good work, and enough people sat up and noticed and said, hey, this guy's, pretty good. Why don't we, bring him over here, sort of thing. And that's all it was. It's just working my butt off and making some cool work and making some cool friends along the way. Like every project I would, work my butt off. Because as my mentor would say, your best work is only your last work. So I just worked my butt off. And after that, they sort of picked me up and said, hey.
Cool. And you're enjoying Australia? You're planning to stay there?
Yeah. I'm planning on staying here for sure. There's a lot of good work in Sydney and Australia. It's a good place to be. Well, apart from the whole New South Wales thing that happened recently, it was pretty good. We had it pretty good, but it's just something you got to roll with. I think it's everywhere these days. So, but I like this. I like Sydney. It's a cool city. It's really fun to be as a 29-year-old.
Cool. Amazing. Oh, that's really nice. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I'll come back to New Zealand one day, maybe when I've worked my butt off and done my dash.
Oh yes, please come and visit us in the new campus.
I'd love to.
To a new campus, and feel free to pop in at any time.
I've heard. It looks really nice.
Yeah. It was quite a big process, but yeah, we're really happy in our new home. So there is something here that we would like you to talk a little bit, which is around in terms of the studies that you had at Media Design School. What parts of your studies best prepared you for the success that you're having in your career?
Sorry, what was that? What particular ones gave me a little push?
What parts of your studies that you think best prepared you to be where you are at the moment in your career?
I would say probably doing. Yeah, no, it's a good question. I would say what best part of the studies prepares you for your career? Honestly, is working well with others. I think that helped a lot. So you guys do your India group project and stuff like that. I did that, but it was being able to work in a team, because that's what you're going to be doing. To be honest, you're going to be working with the guys sitting beside you. You're going to be getting feedback from your seniors. You're going to be doing all that sort of stuff. So being able to work as a unit and getting on with everyone around you, because let's be real, like, you're going to spend like 10 hours or whatever with these people. You gotta gel with them, and you gotta work well. Like, I found that my buddies that we worked with, we got along really well, and we pushed each other as well. I would do a comp and the other guys would do some 3D and be like, mine's better. I'd be like, whatever, dude. And we'd try and outdo each other. And now they're all happily at Weta, and some of them are at ILM, like they're all doing well. And I think that helped a lot. But what also helped was doing that extra stuff outside of MDS. Like what I did was I worked on music videos and I worked on low budget, productions in New Zealand and Auckland, and just made connections, basically. I think connections are also key. And just being personable and being a people person and just having a really good attitude from that, because I would do MD stuff and then I would work 2 jobs on the weekend. One as a photographer for music gigs and stuff, and another I'd be like a runner on set for productions, and I was really keen to learn and I wanted to learn the whole process. So having that really keen attitude, and I'm a bit of a workaholic, so like you guys might not be.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's a bit toxic, as my girlfriend would say. But she's also a producer. But
right.
yeah, having a good attitude and being personable, I think, best prepared me for the career, because man, you get some assholes, and you just got to wash it off. Like it's just how it is.
Yeah.
What's the skill now?
Yeah, we've got a few students dropping questions at the chat, so I believe we can go through them as you talk. So Aurelian, he's from our Bachelor of Art and Design course, and he's asking you about the skills, comp, lighting, modeling. Feel free to go through that.
Yeah, cool. So what specifically are you asking? What do we use? May I ask which skills as well? So I was comp. I'm a compositor, so I was, a nuke artist. So 2D. So yeah, I went and did that stream and set it down the modeling 3D route. So because I'm too impatient to sit around and watch renders turn over, so I was like, no, I don't want to do that. It's way more fun being silly and compositing and making the and fixing the CG. I took TD, yeah, because I don't know how it is these days at MDS, because we had a like an intro sort of 3D. We had a 3D design of visual effects, but for the first, I think, year or two was theory, and we sort of learned everything, and we took TD and stuff as a part of the curriculum, but then in the second year you specialize and you go into your own stream, and that's when you can choose to be a comper or an animator or a TD. All my good industry buddies from MDS, they're TDs now.
Cool.
Yeah, they're at Weta. I think one's at Important Looking Pirates. So I think he's actually the VFX supervisor on Mandalorian now. That's Martin. Which Raf, he'll know Raf, and Raf will know him. But yeah, so it was a comp.
Oh. And there's someone asking about the softwares that you guys mostly use in industry.
So it's all sorts these days. Depends on what you want to do. So we use for compositing, we use Nuke, which is like your standard, like everyone composites in Nuke. I'm a flame artist, so that's a bit more high end. That's like finishing. So with what I do, I'll be sitting in a suite. Actually, I'll show you a suite.
Oh wow, that's a cool place.
Yeah, that's like my office, and you'll sit there behind the computer, and the client will sit on the couch, and then they'll say, put this graphic on, change this, do that. It's kind of like a live grading, and so I'll sit there and do it live, and so that's what a flame artist does. So it's pretty nice. And for effects like fire, simulations, dust particles, anything that requires kind of like physics or kind of like real world parameters, that's Houdini. If you want to make a good amount of money, be a Houdini artist. And it's really cool. It's really fun. I can't do it because I'm not that clever or patient, as I said. I am patient. But Houdini is really cool because it does, fire simulation and stuff. But those are kind of like the main ones. So we all animate in Maya. TDs will use Maya, which is fantastic because it crashes like all the time. Thanks, Autodesk. But yeah, it's mostly Autodesk. It's all Maya stuff. Cool. It's kind of like industry standard. Yeah. So those are the main ones.
Cool. Yeah. Did it change a lot since you graduated in terms of softwares and stuff like that?
Nah, nah, it's still been the same since when I graduated, which has been good. But to be honest, like a tool is a tool, whether it be a hammer or um, a spanner. It's not the tool. It's kind of how you use it, and that's something that I always try and teach the new guys is, finding out the best tool for the solution for the job. It's the softwares that are going to come and go. I haven't seen it yet, purely because it's quite a bigger industry these days. But back in the day, there were a lot of changes in software. Like things would come up and go down and change, and you had to learn something new, every few years. But it's pretty standard and it's pretty, normal across the board these days. So yeah, it's Nuke for compositing, Maya for everything like animation, lighting, rendering, Arnold, Redshift for those sides, and Houdini for effects and stuff.
Yeah.
How did you go about choosing the major specialization for second year? Would there be any tips you could give? I think it comes down to like your own personal thing, man. Like, for me, I was always a drawer and a photographer, and I liked playing with colors. I liked editing photos, and I liked doing photo bashes. Like I liked doing composites. Like I'd take a photo and I would like put another building in the city type thing, and that to me is compositing. You're taking multiple elements and you're putting it on one frame or multiple frames. In a sequence. I really liked the instant satisfaction of like, oh, cool, I've got the CG robot render and I've got the plate. We shot it on the camera, and I like putting the two together and making the robot look like it was in the plate because it's really instant. You're like pushing and pulling colors, and it was sick. So to me, that's where I enjoyed it, because it's kind of like it's more creative than I think it's creative. I'm totally biased because I'm a composer, but it's more instant as well, and you have a bit more freedom to like push and pull and play, as opposed to being a TD, for instance, is quite a technical feat, and there's a lot of menus, and Maya terrifies me, and like I have so much passion for like or Maya artists, but I can't stare at that grey UI all day. I would go crazy. So I would say it's up to you. What do you like doing? Do you like modeling? Do you like creating those super real, super cool CG assets, or do you like?
I have a first meeting right now.
Okay, cool. So I gotta move room real quick. Sorry about this, guys.
That's a good.
Cool. So I like, yeah, I liked the instant pushing and pull of the pictures and stuff like that, as opposed to like creating CG. Like I don't mind it, but yeah, I prefer that.
Is it something that you haven't done yet in the field that you would like to try, Jesse?
No, probably not. Probably not. I like compositing. I like what I'm doing. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
we've got more questions there. Were you making?
Ooh, let's have a look.
Were you making your own assets?
You're making your own assets composite, or just gathering MIDI images? Oh, I was doing it all. Like I'd grab images from the internet and like smash them all together. I was a big photographer, like, so I would love to take my own shots and then go on the internet and rip an image off Google and then put them on there, or photo bash or something. I also used to make my own art and stuff like that. So I think, to me, having like a visual design and moving a slider and watching the colors go up or colors go down was way more interesting than going into a menu and saying, more specular highlight on this part type vibe. But yeah, I think that's where I went to, for sure. Getting my own assets and just going on the internet and stealing them. Who cares? It's just for me, just to have fun. Do you know what I mean?
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got another question there. I love that you guys are coming up with a lot of questions. After graduating from MDS, did you have a situation where you were applying for a job and you only met half of or less than the job requirements? If you did, how do you go about it and to get yourself for the job?
So that's a good one because I know you guys are like just graduating, right? Or some of you are. Just apply for it, to be honest. Like be as confident as a cis white male and just smash it out and just go for it. You know, what's the worst they can say? No? Do you know what I mean? Like that it's fine, like it's totally fine. Like I remember when we were all graduating and I can understand there's a lot of pressure, to be honest. There's a lot of pressure trying to get that job and get that yes. But you guys are in a really great position right now, to be honest, because there is a severe lack of artists and the industry is crying and screaming for artists. So apply. You might be pleasantly surprised. A lot of these days now, it's not about the skill set on the paper. It's what do you like as a person? What do you like to work with a team? So, you know, they'll bring you in and interview them and stuff like that. So you guys are in a great position to apply for those jobs that you meet half the requirements or something maybe. But as long as you got that attitude, like to me personally, if I had someone apply for a role and they only had like half the requirements, and I had someone else get, you know, tick all the boxes, I would interview them both. I would talk to them both. But if the person with, you know, not as much on their reel or like, you know, they had the attitude as opposed to the other person not having the attitude, I would take them. Like that means more to me at least. Depending on the role, obviously, but if you got a half decent reel and you've got a good attitude, like that's pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was going to ask you what advice would you give to our current students and also students who are about to graduate, but I believe you answered that already.
Yeah. Honestly, just apply. Do those interviews because like I'm getting emails all the time. Yeah, LinkedIn's good. LinkedIn's totally good. Yeah. As much as I loathe social media, LinkedIn is decent. It's once you set it up and you can do job searches and stuff like that, it's pretty smooth sailings and things like that. But it's an avenue that you might get a job, and why deny yourself another avenue that you might get a job in? Do you know what I mean? Like it's as simple as that. You know, LinkedIn's great. LinkedIn's pretty good, as much as it sucks and looks like corporate sweet espionage.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any more questions? I don't know if you noticed, Jess, that one of your ex-tutors is here today, Raf. Raf, do you want to say a hi? And I believe that you might have some technical questions.
No, I'm too shy.
Don't be shy. Sorry, I'm just plugging in my charger.
I'll wait for you then. I want to make a question, but I want to be looking at you. How have you been, man? It's a long time, eh?
Been a while, brother. Yeah. Been a while.
Yeah, Jesse was he was in my first class when I started teaching at MDS. Those guys were, I think you guys were the first bachelor degree class, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, we were the first. We were the guinea pigs, and yeah, we gave you a run for your money.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
It was fun. It was really good.
Jesse, I want to make a couple of questions. I think some of them you already replied, but I mean, just from a student's perspective, right? So sometimes the students, they come to school, they really love 3D and they're excited about learning it. And we throw a bunch of other stuff before the 3D, like photography, sculpting, sometimes, scripting and stuff that some of the people, they don't like that, or they don't see how that may help they may help them shape, their mind into something that it's in a proper tool, like 3D tool. Like if you go there and start before jumping to 3D, you do a little bit of sculpting, so you get that sense of proportion, volume, scale, and even photography, you develop all the attention to detail. So what would be your, and what happens is because right at the beginning, some students, they don't perceive that, how that can help them in the future.
Yeah.
So what would be a recommendation, like after going through the whole process of studying and, and starting working now where you are at the moment, if you could go back and change yourself when you were studying, what would you do? You get it?
Yeah.
How would you change your behavior if you could go back in time to make the most of what you were learning at that time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a tough one too, Raf. Because you guys are trying to correlate what you're learning now to what you will be using. But you have to understand, like, photography is a good one there, Raf. Like, that's a really mean one. So for a camera, you've got focal length, you've got lens info, you've got, how much you expose that image by. All that stuff in a camera are literally what you're going to be doing in a CG software. So, your f-stop or your exposure are all things that you control with a camera, and there will be all the things that you control in software. So if I was going back and changing something, I would be more trying to understand, I guess, the photography side of it, the creative side of it, because I would be trying to better myself in those ways, because that creates, to me, critical thinking. You're trying to figure out a problem at its base level. If you're trying to sketch out something, you can relate to that in sculpting. Like, it's literally the same sort of thing. But if I was to go back and change something, I would try and imitate more people's work. I think for me, and to try and understand, like, some you guys would see, you got some artists that you really look up to and stuff. So I would try and replicate their photos, or replicate their sculpts, or replicate, their CG and stuff like that. Try and imitate and try and learn that way, because that's a really good way for me to learn. And it makes you think, like, okay, great, I've got this f-stop on my camera. I'll put this f-stop into, Maya. How does that look? It looks exactly the same. So I would try and replicate and try and mirror what I was doing in real life on the software, because I think that helps. And I'd probably try and pay more attention to that sort of detail and that sort of stuff, because the technical stuff it takes a while to learn, and you kind of got to get it right. The creative stuff, you can have a play and just be silly and stuff, like in your own hours, but the technical is important for sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of technical things that sometimes we get exposed in the beginning, but it is complicated, so you end up not paying attention to that. For example, like sensor size, this is something that I'm constantly beating on that, because this changes completely, especially if you're tracking, if you're doing like integration work, and it's something that because it's confusing. Yeah, people don't pay attention to that, and it just in the end you say, "Oh my God, now I'm lost because I don't get anything right." And it's
exactly.
It's very important.
Yeah, it is important. I would say try and remember the technical stuff, because like it's kind of your foundation. It's your base level to everything. I'm totally not a technical person. I'm a bit more creative, but having that foundation is so important. So I'd try and pay more attention to that for sure.
There's one other question for you. Not question, but I ask you to talk a little bit about it. Is basic things that we try to implement since like the year one, like foundation modules and stuff. And then I think it's really important for you when you become a professional, which is working in a way that everything is organized and tidy. Because, I think as a student, you go there and start naming stuff, and you start naming like whatever you want, because you know what's happening, right? And you kind of develop that mentality and keep working like that, even if like the lectures keep pushing, do things, name things properly, follow naming conventions. But it's hard again, because as a student, you don't understand why you're doing this. It just seems like, it's too much. I don't want to do that. But in the end, it makes a huge difference, because you work in a team environment where all the people, they're going to be working on the same project as you are, and that changes things completely. So if you start practicing that from the beginning, I believe. You can tell me that what is the experience now, but how that can affect your professionalism.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's really, really, really important. Once again, on the technical side, to chuck your render onto your desktop and call it final, and then final v2 is the dumbest shit ever. You will just hurt yourself. It's a terrible habit. We've all done it. I used to, like, my desktop was awful. But when you get into a working environment, the standardization is paramount because you have not only hundreds of artists potentially in a facility, but you've got multiple locations. So for instance, we have our facility is in Sydney, Brisbane, which is the main office, Tokyo, and LA. So we have to have a standardization of folder structure, of naming convention, of like process, because if you do your project, you do your work, say, and then I don't know, you have a day off, someone has to be able to pick that up and be able to find where you've put everything. So it's one of the most important things, and it's really hard because every place works differently. So it does take time, and don't beat yourself up when you get to a place and it's really overwhelming and there's all these naming conventions and folder structures and stuff, because a lot of it is quite automated because it's very complicated. So, you know, for instance, when I do a render, or when the guys publish a nuke or in Autodesk for a render, they will automatically put out all the naming parts and conventions, and it'll automatically upload it to Shotgun, for instance, because we use Shotgun. I don't know if you guys use Shotgun, but it's honestly very important, and it's a good habit to get into. So even if you're at home, or even if you're still studying, practice a folder structure. Practice, like, what I do at home when I'm doing extra work is, like, I'll have, you know, work, and then I'll have the project, and I'll have, like, you know, my shots folder, my reference folder, and in the shots folder, it'll be like shot 1 or shot 2, shot 3, and then in that it'll be like my plate or my reference or my render, and just learn to have a tidy, you know, understanding of folder structure, because someone has to go on, you know, someone has to go onto your computer, or someone has to find your renders, and if it clearly says, oh yeah, this is a project, that's the shot, and that's a shot render, that's all they need to know. You know, it's keeping it simple like that. But it is hard. It is hard. As a messy person, it's really hard. But a lot of it's automated, which helps. Thank God.
That's really good to know. I have another one for you. That's another one for you. Follow instructions, okay? Because this is something that usually causes a problem as well. So we'll go there, give instructions, and say, okay, make this rounded, or make this square, make this yellow, make this red. How important it is when you're working to follow instructions, even if you don't agree with what's being asked. So let's say, make a yellow cube, and you say, I don't like yellow. I think red is going to work better. But you need to follow the instructions, right? And this is something that, again, I don't see, because of course you need experience. That's why I want to talk a little bit how important it is to follow instructions, no matter if you agree with that or not.
That's a real good question, considering when you guys will get your jobs. It's not if, it's when. Like, you guys went to MDS. Like, it's just a matter of time before you guys get your gigs. So you'll have things like dailies. I don't know if you guys practice dailies, or basically it's like what Raph said. So you go into a meeting, like, bunch of you in a room, and you'll sit down and you'll go through the shots. And like, as Raph said, you know, your supervisor, me, or your lead artist, or your lead 3D or lead 2D guy, he will sit there and be like, yeah, can you just change cube to yellow? And there will be a reason for it. And if you disagree with it, it's hard to deal with at first, for sure. And my advice would be to bite your tongue, like when you first start, for sure. Would be to listen, absorb, and figure out why. It wouldn't be to push back, because when you first start, these guys, you know, the supervisors, the seniors, the lead 3D guys, that are saying make cube yellow, they're doing it for a reason. And try and understand the why, because these guys like me, like, we have to deal with not only 30 of, you know, these shots, but we also have to deal with the whole timeline. For instance, you'd probably just be focusing on your one shot and be like, no, it looks way better as a red cube instead of a yellow cube. But you have to keep in mind that we have to deal with the rest of the timeline, the rest of the piece. We have to deal with people above us saying, no, it works like this. We have to deal with people like a director or the screenwriter saying, oh, no, it works story-wise with this, this, and that. So there's a lot more that goes on above that you have to understand that get trickled down a little bit. And it is hard because you're like, oh man, I don't know why they're making me comp it really dark. It should be a better bright. But my advice would be they're doing it for a reason, and to understand the why, and to just figure out that, you know, they've got some experience. They know what they're talking about. Obviously, you might come in and be like, oh, their opinion's a dumb shit opinion, and I think I'm much better. But it's easy. It's real easy because I've been there. But it's just to take a step back and to chill that ego and to just figure that out why. But once you've gotten a bit of experience and some projects under your belt, then I think that's when you can, and you start moving up. So you go from like an ATD, like an assistant TD, to say a TD, and then you're able to have your say. But learn there is kind of like a structure, and there is kind of like, it depends on the place. Obviously, there can be hierarchies. For instance, there is a hierarchy at Weta. You know, if you're an ATD, you come in and you do dailies, and they say move this, do that, and you're like, yes, yes, and you kind of just like, but you got to earn your stripes. But when you move up a little bit and you get a bit of experience and you understand when to have your say and when not to have your say, that's really important as well. Don't just quickly go out and attack and defend your work. Listen, like criticism is creative often. So there's a reason for it, and just learn to absorb that and learn when to say, oh, actually, I don't agree with making cube yellow. I think that's a dumb shit opinion. Or, you know, just figure out the why and pick a time when you can disagree. Like, is it worth me kicking up the stink about this? You know, who cares? It's rock number 5000 on frame 23 on an 8K image. You know, it's like, pick your battles. But I would say when you first starting off, just chill your boots and listen and try and understand. And then maybe after a few years, then you can be like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I, you know, because looking back, you might have been like, oh god, I was such an idiot. Why did I say that? I look like a fool. Because I've heard it before. I have a friend at Weta who's a very good TD, and a new guy did start, and he said some pretty like, oh man, like you know, like, shouldn't quite be saying that. These guys be doing it for 20 years. Maybe you want to listen and chill your boots type vibe. You know what I mean? But it's hard. It's really hard.
I mean, suggestions are good at the right time, and when you know the entire process, when you have like a full, when you have like an overview of the whole project, then I think suggestions are always good. But as long as you know everything of the whole process before doing it, because otherwise, you know, it's just because sometimes those guys are busy, right? It's like for the guys who you report to, you don't want to make them waste time listening to something that, you know, it's not. And the other thing that's important is your option or your idea may be better, but it's not your film. It's not your project. So when you are in their position, you go there and make your choices, right? So it's just let's just make sure that before going, you know, follow the instructions and step back and follow some. There's another one for you.
And it also, to go on that, it also depends on place as well. Like if you go to a big place like Weta, for instance, like totally there is a hierarchy. Like there's a big hierarchy. But if you go to a smaller boutique like place that I didn't go to a big place. I'm not keen for big places. I went to a small place like Blockhead, or where we are here at Alt, which is a medium-sized place. You're able to have that say a bit sooner. Do you know what I mean? So if you're at Blockhead and you're a junior, it could be like after 6 months, you know, or even instantly, depending on how good you are and your attitude. They'll be like, oh, actually, what do you reckon? Like, they'll be like, oh, maybe we try this. And it's the way you word it as well. It's maybe like, oh, I think that's wrong. Like that's, and just having a really plucky attitude is not the way to go. But if you're like, oh, that's cool. How about we try that? Or what if we tried this? And using that kind of language. And at a smaller place, you might be able to have that say a bit sooner. They might respect you for it as well, because it's a smaller team. Everyone kind of has to work a bit more tight knit. So that's why I always like going to smaller places, because I think you learn quicker and you're a part of a team better. Anyway.
Another one. Look, Bianca threw me here, and I got excited. Now I'm gonna make some questions. One other thing that I think is important to have your, to hear your opinion about it is, it's learning how to learn, right? So it's like not every time you face a problem, you go there and question. I mean, it needs a little bit of student effort as well to go there and trying to figure out, because when you're working, as you know, you won't have time to be asking all the time, or before asking, you need to make sure you ran out of options, and that's it. And of course, you don't want someone just trying for like 2 months before before asking for help. So how to find that balance of trying to learn yourself or find a solution yourself, and when asking for help?
No, that's a really good one, because that can be a problem with a lot of people starting out. Is that you kind of get sucked into a little vortex, and as you said, it could be, rather than 2 months, it'll be like 2 days, and all of a sudden you've lost 2 days, and you got to deliver the thing, the next day. It's a really tricky balance. My opinion on this is that there is no such thing as a dumb question. Like, you have people around you, I have people around me, and I have people above me that I can talk to instantly, and they know how to fix this problem, or they know what to do. So that's important. I could spend the afternoon trying to figure it out, which I often will try. I'll set myself a limit. I'll be like, all right, I'll give myself 30 minutes, an hour. If I can't figure it out, and if I'm still banging my head against the wall and I haven't quite got it, I'll just slack them, or I'll call them and be like, hey, dude, how do I do this thing? And they'll be like, oh man, I've done it a million times before, just like, and then they tell you. So I would say it's like dependent on your time frame. So in commercials, which I mostly work on, we have a very, very small window to do things. So as I said, I'll give myself 30 minutes, an hour to figure it out. And if I can't, there's no harm in asking your workmate, or someone in the industry, on how to do it. There is no such thing as a dumb question. Being dumb is trying to do it yourself for 2 days and not getting anywhere and not telling anyone. Because then I might go to my artist and be like, hey man, you figured that thing out, or you done that shit? He's like, no. I was like, well, why didn't you ask for help? Put your hand up, man. Like, there is no harm in that. I personally wouldn't think any less of a person if they didn't know how to do something. Because man, like, so many of us don't know how to do everything. Like, if you know how to do everything, like, that person doesn't exist. So, asking for help is really important. I would say give it a shot, see how you go, but it comes with experience and trying to figure out that balance. For me, I wouldn't spend more than a day trying to do something, and then not ask for help. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so that's just me.
I promise I have just one more.
Yeah.
So I actually have two, but one of them you kind of replied already, which is, you commented already, was about how important it is for you to build a strong relationship, not just at school, but when you start working, because your colleagues that you're working together now, they're going to spread in the world, and they're going to help you find work. And of course, you need to be a good artist, but the more connections you have, or better relationships you have, that will make your career run smoother, right?
Totally. Yeah.
But there's another thing is, I see again some students that are very very focused on the tool that they're using. For example, I'm doing Maya, I'm doing Blender, I'm doing Houdini, So and sometimes I push a little bit on that, saying that it's not about the tool they're using, because if you're using Maya and you go to another software, of course, it changes the interface, but the core is the same. What it's doing the same. So I'd rather have them focusing more on why they're doing stuff. For example, if they're doing texture, it's not I'm using Substance, or I'm using Mario, I'm using Photoshop. Doesn't matter. But why you painting such whatever detail that they're painting? What's the reason? What's the motivation behind that? Right. So I think hearing from you that have the experience like in different places, I don't know, can you develop something there? So what would you say about it?
Yeah, I would say a tool is a tool. It's finding out which one works best for the job. Not one thing is, going to do everything. Although we're in an industry which is quite weird. You can specialize as like really, really, really well at your field, and you can be fine at it, and you can get work, and you can do all that. You can also be a generalist, but yeah, like it's just a different tool. It's just a different tool. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to learn everything. You don't have to be the best at it, but just learning enough to get you by is good enough, because the tools are going to change. It's the critical thinking behind it. It's the reason why, you know, you're like, oh, I could do this in 20 minutes in Mari, or I could do this in 5 minutes in Photoshop. You know, it's figuring out which one is quickest and more efficient. But yeah.
Jess, look, I'll stop now because I think people may have more questions for you. I know the time's running out. Sorry, I took over.
No rush.
But I think this is all. I think it's important for the students to hear from someone who has now experience in being in the industry for quite a long time now. It'll be good for them to hear that from you.
Sure.
Yeah. Guys, open to you guys. You can make more questions. Otherwise, I'll give it back to
we've
Bianca.
got a few. Can you tell us how to prepare your portfolio for the job? Yeah, I mean, for showreel reasons, always put your best work at the front. Try and cut it with a track, something that isn't too lyric-y. More often than not, showreels get played on mute, and they get turned off in the first minute. That's just how it is, because there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of showreels that people have to get through. But put your best foot forward. I'm sure you've been told that before, but start strong. Put a fun track and put your details in it. Me personally, that's what I did. Put all the, because we did impasse at MDS, so I put all my impasse stuff on there, and then you know, put whatever at the end of it. So a website also helps as well, but it's too many clicks. You know, you want to be able to click on the video and then go, showreel, oh yeah, I see their work. Yeah, cool. All right, sweet. And then they're cool. That's, yeah, it's as simple as that. And keep it short and keep it concise. Don't draw out too much on the video as well. You know, like have it sort of, have a good flow and have it cut and have it well cut as well. But definitely start with your best work at the start, because they'll watch the first minute, maybe two, if it's really good, and then they'll turn it off. So anything more than like 2 or 3 minutes is way too long. So as a VFX supervisor, are you usually more in touch with comp material or management? Management and comp material. It's kind of like a bit of both, especially in, well, for me at least. So for instance, I've got like meetings today with directors and meetings with the team. So right after this, I'm going to be like doing a dailies with my team, and because we got a whip to send out to client, like a final animation whip. So we'll have a dailies. I'll talk to the team. I'll see where all the shots are at. I'll say, yep, cool. Let's check out all the material. Yep, that looks good. I'll feedback on that, and then I'll change that, and then we'll redo the whip, and then we'll send the whip off to the director, and then I'll have to jump on a call with the director, and we'll say, hey, this is where we're at. This is your feedback changed, and this is why we wanted to change these things, and then have that creative chat. So it's a bit of both. It's a lot of work. So you not only have to be able to like manage, help manage the shots for yourself or for the team, you have to manage, you know, management and stuff as well. I don't do too much on the tools comping, but I do set the look and I do help creatively, just not on the tools essentially. So it's kind of like a bit of both. It's kind of like an everything. So I'm part of the process from day one. Like I know the project from when we first get it to when it, you know, finally goes to the air, basically, because I'm the one at the end doing the final touches on everything. So you're across everything, the animation, the compositing, the 3D, everything, the calls with the director, the calls with the client, like everything. So it's a lot. Is there a way to find out more about information around final representation? That's a good question. I'm not too sure actually. There might be a few websites online. If you've heard of Befores and Afters, he's really good. Befores and Afters. He's a VFX magazine. There might be on something on there. I'll put it in the chat, but he does really cool breakdowns of like industry stuff. And does a lot of interviews with industry people as well. He's a Sydney-based dude. Yeah, Ian Farley's. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, he's super cool. He does a lot for the industry. But maybe there. But the thing about file organization is very unique to each place, each workplace. So they're not. You can't. Yeah, you can't exactly emulate each place. You can't be like, hey, I want to copy your file structure. What is it? They'll be like, whoa, dude, like it's a little weird. Why are you asking me like that stuff? I think it's more just practicing for yourself and finding something that works, and just getting used to putting things in the same place. Do you know what I mean? I think it's more to do with that than trying to see an example. Yeah. What kind of question?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No,
we are in the final 6 minutes of this session. So we might have time for just a few more questions. But and after that one, we've got another session happening as well. So that's your chance, guys, to do your question to Jesse.
Last chance, last call. What kind of questions are usually asked in an interview? Like, is more related to personality or just software? No, it's software. It's software and personality. Mostly software, to be honest. Like the questions that you get when you do an interview are mostly like, oh, you know, what kind of software do you know? What kind of software? How long have you been using it? When you're being interviewed, they don't ask you really personal questions. Not I did at least, because they want to just kind of get your vibe. You know, like you generally can catch on pretty quick, like the sort of vibe the person's having. Like, is it right for this place? Is it right for me? Is it right for you? Yeah, so it's mostly about software and stuff like that. Because you want to be able to hire them and say, oh yeah, they can use that, and then you're like, oh, this dude's kind of cool, and he can use this software. That's pretty rad. Like, so it's mostly about software. How different is it from what we learn in the course and what professionals do in the industry? Do you agree that the willingness to learn is more important than entry level? Is there a good way to show when applying for jobs? Yeah, I mean, there's a few questions there. How different is it from what we learn? It's pretty same, to be honest. It's pretty same. Like the skills you're learning in MDS, I don't know what you're doing, whether it be roto, whether it be compositing, whether it be editing, whether it be, I'd say it's probably more relevant for the entry level jobs, which is what you guys will be doing. I had to do entry level jobs. I had to do roto and stuff when I first started. So stuff like that, you know, like you'll be learning to roto, learn to get good at the entry level stuff. So it is totally relevant. All of it's relevant. Like learning how to roto, learning how to sit by this dude for 10 hours a day and not punch him in the head because he's playing music real loud. You know, like it's all super relevant. Do you also agree that the willingness to learn is more important for entry level artists? I think yes and no. The willingness to learn is really important, but you also have to have the skills to back it up. Like you gotta have gotta have the skills. You can talk and talk and talk all day, but you still got to do the work. The willingness to learn is just like a super awesome, like magic power. Someone that's really keen and's got a good attitude to show, like, oh yeah, they're keen to do all this, you know. But you got to be good at what you do. That's like the most important thing. Is there any way to show that when applying for jobs? Yeah, I mean, when I was at MDS, I did a lot of extracurricular shit. And when I applied, I had, you know, like I showed that I could composite, I could do all these things. You know, I worked my ass off because during MDS, I was doing a lot of comps and I was trying to make them the best I really could. And I was learning, and to show that, like, to show the willingness for that is to show that you've really engaged at uni and you've really tried. Like, you can tell when someone's really tried. And that shows in your work. Like, it really does. Like, if you really try and if you really, you know, excel and you want to be better at MDS, that will be reflected in your work, and you can tell. Also, as a bonus, like I said, the extracurricular stuff, like I worked on productions and I had all the stuff. So I was like, oh yeah, I worked on productions on set and in my spare time for free because I wanted to learn everything. And they're like, oh, well, you know, like that helps a lot. But yeah, like just really, really trying, really engaging, because you're only cheating yourself if you're not trying now. Do you know what I mean? That's all it is. Because your best work is the work that you just did. So if you didn't try, that shows. And it's as simple as that, really.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I'm back to the thing.
Okay.
We've got 1 minute to wrap up. Guys, I think the tips that you guys received here are just gold, right? not only, I think, for life, not only for the Bachelor of Art and Design studies or career, whatever. You know, I really hope that you guys observed all these amazing tips that we received today. Thanks, Ref, for bringing so many important topics to the conversation. And I should have said it in the beginning, but I've recorded the session, Jesse. I
so
hope
it is.
it's
Yeah, no worries.
okay to share
It's all
that
good.
with the students who missed the session. Some of our
No
students
worries.
are really busy. Some of them probably didn't see my invite or something, but if you give us the green light to share that, that would be amazing. Okay.
I do.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
go for it.
Thank you
No
again for
worries.
your time, for
That's all
sharing
right.
all your experience and knowledge with us, with our students. MDS students, thanks for joining us. I'm really happy to see so many of you here today. And I hope you all have a great day. Jesse, I hope
Yeah, you too.
keep yourself busy
Oh, I'm
in
always
Australia,
busy.
and keep in touch with us whenever you're in
Yeah, for
Auckland.
sure.
Just come in and visit us in our new campus, and the doors will be always open for you.
Sounds good.
All right, and thanks everyone.